The bread and butter tools such as the DAW, virtual effects, and virtual instruments weren't available back in the 80s. If you're aiming for a truer retro pop production style, be aware of these pitfalls. Number 1, sidechain compression on everything, especially the bass. Number 2, transitional effects such as filter sweeps, risers, and impacts. Number 3, dominant level of the kick and or the bass. If you listen to 80s pop, you'll hear that the kick and the bass weren't as loud back then as we use them now. Number 4, automation on everything, especially effects and filters. In the 80s, there were no DAWs, so any automation had to be done manually by the band or the artists or assistant engineers while they were printing the mix. Therefore, you couldn't automate any parameter that you could think of. There were more limitations. Number 5, contemporary sounding drum samples. In the 80s, drum samples that producers used came mostly from classic drum machines such as the LM1, Lindrum, Oberheim DMX, or any one of those others available at the time, which had their own flavor and limitations due to how the technology worked back then. Or they would call in a drummer who would record in the studio, and those recordings would be sampled and used in different tracks and songs. Today we have the ability to carefully design our drum samples and stack up on sounds to get to a certain power or impact. Listen to some early Madonna, Prince, or Cyndi Lauper to get a feel for how things were done back then. See if you can pick out a few production techniques that you may want to try on your next tracks. Let me know how it goes.